Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today for our July CCC-TPP meeting. It's a very busy time in education, as we're all aware, and I appreciate you, especially taking the time during summer to join us. I've put the agenda in the chat today. If you could make sure you can access that. If you have any issues, please just let me know, and I can email it to you or find another way to get it to you. Let's go ahead and start, please, by saying, or actually, let's do it in the chat. Put your name and your institution, but also say something that you're excited or hopeful for in the new school year. So in the 20 to 23 school year. So if everybody could take a minute and do that, that would be great. And then we will get right into CSU fieldwork flexibilities. And it's great to see everybody today. I really appreciate it. I wasn't sure how many people would be able to show up because I know this is really at the very, everybody's squeezing our last moments of summer vacation in right now. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm like looking to see. Oh, there we go. Veronica, I love it. Oh, no, don't worry, Sharon. Wait, I totally know that you're in an interesting situation today. So thanks for being here. But if you can't stay, we understand. Veronica's returning to a combination of remote and in-person. I know one of my colleagues this morning, she got to go to an in-person event this past week and got to see students, which was really exciting. I know a lot of our campuses are still struggling with enrollment, especially in the face-to-face space. So it's kind of interesting to see how people are tackling that for fall and what the plans are. Oh, Sharon, you're waiting for a contract? Nothing like that. That's part of our system that people don't understand and what can sometimes, stall things. Hey, Megan, it's good to see you. Very good to see you. Everybody's talking about Fresno, Megan, so keep doing good work in Central Valley and Clovis, because Fresno is becoming one of the models of the state. So we appreciate everything you're doing. Yay! That was always something I had hoped that Central Valley we'd see, because we've always seen the Northern and Southern Cal, and we wanted to see that elevation of Central, which is so awesome. Awesome, awesome. Rosemary, thrilled that you are here. Rosemary, you always crack me up when you make yourself less than you are. You are a very powerful being, and so don't ever under anticipate what you do or underappreciate. Kathy, thanks for being here from LPI. It's great to see you. Partnerships to develop P3 programs. We're going to be busy. There's a lot to do for sure, for sure. Well, let's open up, everybody. Thank you for saying, what you're interested in. Oh, and I appreciate, Kate, what you just put. Looking forward to starting ECAP together. I'm excited for fall. I want to just get things up and running, because right now is when the bumps are happening and the frustrations are happening. And so it's really nice once the groove starts to happen. So I'm looking forward to getting to the groove, because right now some of the walls are coming up and it's like, we need to rip them down and get to where we need to get going, continuing to teach people how to teach and support them as much as possible. So let's begin our discussion today with opening up about the CSU fieldwork flexibilities. This is an interesting thing, and it's all like in motion right now. So Rosemary and I are going to share what we know. We open up for everybody to also feel free to share, but we wanted to let you know that, in the pandemic, as everybody knows, Marquita had sent out a memo from the chancellor's office, really helping for us to understand, what was happening in terms of field work and how there was going to be flexibilities for our students. Everybody who's on right now knows exactly what happened. Shannon and Megan were champions with creating the canvas for all of our different EDU faculty to be able to access online resources, really to switch everything into the virtual space. When we had students starting to come back in spring, we started to see people wanting to do more face-to-face interactions in the classroom, but we ran into a lot of additional barriers with schools not being ready to allow our fieldwork students in. As everyone knows, our community college fieldwork students are not considered student teachers. They're more often than not considered volunteer status in their placements. And when you have a volunteer status, it just puts you at a different place in terms of, can you get on campus or not right now? As opposed to student teachers, they don't have that same type of barrier. And we get it, but we also want to make sure that whatever our students are engaging in is an authentic experience that's really helping them to test drive the field of education, but also an experience that is going to transfer to a four-year institution so they don't have to retake the class later on in their education pathway. That would be a waste of money for everybody involved, both our agencies and our students. And so We asked the CSU, there's a new vice chancellor, and we have asked for basically information on what flexibilities are going to be available in fall. And based on what we've heard at this point, it sounds as if she is suggesting that we find out campus by campus with our CSU partners, as opposed to having one memo that goes out across the state. So Rosemary, I want to hand it to you because within our emails, you already started kind of unpackaging this and kind of saying, what does this mean? So would you mind kind of opening up this discussion a little bit more right now with the team?
Sure. And this has been on the top of my questions list all summer because I have already been thinking even before the pandemic about putting Ed 200 online. And so at Cuesta, we have two sections, one in person, one fully async, and the async one has been getting higher enrollment than the in-person, just FYI. So that's one interesting thing about modality. But my concern is that it is a monumental task to set up the observations. It takes me a full 2 weeks, like almost full time, to get that to happen, just because of chasing down all the different teachers and everything. And also for our students, several of my students prefer online for COVID reasons and other access reasons, and because they're working full time. So my concern, I have a lot of concerns if we aren't getting a definitive statement from folks on what the expectations are. And I am extremely concerned if this becomes a campus by campus situation or even a system by system, because I understand and I want to acknowledge and clarify that Steve Bautista has been in communication with the CSUs about this, and he thinks it's really important that we maintain and follow through with the request that has been made with them. But I see it as incredibly disruptive. Like, we're already having enough trouble with transferring, our ADT, that if each, think about it, if each campus has a different set of rules, I mean, that's going to be like forcing my asynchronous students who are full-time employees in another space, some of them in schools, but forcing them to go in person is going to cut down on our ability to supply future educators in the state of California. So, I mean, if I get my way, it's flexible. It's what works best for the student. And we all know that virtual is different when we're observing virtual, but there's some really huge advantages to it too, because I can watch multiple grade levels and different types of teaching going on. So no, you're not getting the contact with the children, but I would argue you're still getting a pretty robust experience observing approaches to teaching. And if this is meant to give our students observation opportunities, I would argue that the ones that we have available online are quite comparable to what they might see in person. And if we're digging to the bottom of the barrel to find teachers for them to observe, and they're going into classrooms where there's some very outdated behavior management kinds of things going on, or they're thrown into a classroom that they really just need a paraeducator, and they end up working one-on-one with kids, and they're not getting to watch teaching. So anyhow, the big thing that I think it matters most here is, how can we keep moving the finish line like this? We have to understand that school starts in 2 weeks, right? So I need to know, so I know what I'm telling my students they're in for. And I mean, we know they need their hours, but I don't understand how we can operate in a system where the game is different at every single one of the CSUs, and then potentially for the UCs and the privates. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because I guess I don't understand, like, if this is a credential requirement, which I don't know if it is this part of their overall hours?
I don't think it goes into their overall hours. I think their student teaching is outside of this, but it's part of their bachelor's degree requirement. And please, if I'm misspeaking, somebody
No,
correct.
okay,
Well, I think I know it's a requirement to get into the credential programs. But if you think about it, that as like, I always use my Russian studies bachelor's. Okay, so I'm Joe's student and I do a political science undergrad and I decide I want to go teach 6th grade. So now I want to go to a credential program. In order to get into the credential program, I take Ed 200 because it gives me the 45 hours that are required for the credential program.
Okay, Sharon's going to speak, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think you're required to take field work before you go into a credential program.
Okay, then that's one of the things Cal Poly makes you do.
okay, so it varies.
Yes, some campuses do require a fieldwork observation course to get admitted into the teacher prep program.
Their credential.
Okay, but Fullerton will say, okay, so they don't do the field work, then they have to, because they need like, what is it, 400 hours to get the credential. And so from the community college, we give, you know, minimum 45 with education 200, but then there's other classes that have field work. So it's very flippant, like, oh, they'll just do it when they get to, you know, they transfer. We don't want that. We want our hours to count. But compounding this, even if, I mean, there's some schools now, they don't even want volunteers, they quote volunteers. So, you know, because we've got stuff set up for online that is just as valuable. I think it's just as valuable, you know, they go to conferences, you know, online, everything, that they can get a full experience. But the thing is that if this doesn't count, it's a problem. But if they can go into a school, great. But now they may not let them in because they don't want volunteers. And we're hearing that a lot. And now, I think those of you who know me know that I work in Orange County, but I live in San Diego. So I follow what's happening in San Diego. They're starting all this stuff in San Diego, like the mask and this and that. And it's you know, COVID is didn't go away. People are really getting it again. And I fear that this stuff isn't over. And we're going to have another tough call with you know, another year with the field work. And if it's not consistent and throughout, I mean, I don't know if you remember, and we're pretty close with Fullerton. They had something going on that was so awful, but then it was overruled by the CSU central office. And that's what we want to hope for, that we get some uniformity, because it's a mess, right?
Yeah, well, and you know, Veronica put something really interesting in the chat. When we, first of all, EDU, we're lucky if we have one class on the campus, right? Maybe two, but usually just one. So that's, I mean, that's really important, that this is the experience at the community college for those K-12 future teachers. Unless they're looking at early care, then in ECE, you know, they have a ton of options. One of the things, though, that's important to note, many of our EDU faculty in our system are full-time in the classroom during the day, or they're part-time at one college, 2 colleges, 3 colleges teaching you. Veronica's point here is, so what happens if you've got EDU professor that's at 2 different community colleges that then is partnering with 2 or 3 different CSUs, and each one of them has different requirements? And because that's a reality, like that's part of our population, faculty that are teaching on multiple campuses. And also when you're part-time faculty, how much connection do you have with the CSU? I think about when the first like 3 years, so 6 semesters I taught EDU, I didn't meet with anybody in my region at all. I wasn't told to. I was told to come in and teach a class. That's what I did, 3 hours a week.
But
And
you know what,
I did
those of us in like in Orange County, we I don't know, we meet with Fullerton and Long Beach, you know, all the time, not all the time, but we're really in close contact with them and we follow their rules. And so, you know, I mean, theoretically, at Coastline, and so some of the other ones, you could get 45 hours for Education 200, and you get 10 hours for school, family, community partnerships, and you can get 8 hours with 2 math for teachers classes, and then a special ed class, you get 10 hours. So all these are supposed to count, and it's just fewer hours that they have to do when they transfer. So it's a little bit devastating to say, okay, I mean, our courses, I mean, it's really complicated because when you go through the glorious curriculum committee and you make all these promises, you're going to do something. You can't just stop giving the field work because they don't want it. It's part of the class. Education 200 with us is 3.5 units. It's been asynchronous since the year 2001 or something like that. And we haven't changed, but you know, and we have to do elementary school, and maybe you can define elementary school to grade 8 because that's what the AAT demands. So that's going to be another fight, but we're supposed to all, you know, you're not supposed to send them to high schools where education, you know, 180, you know, which is school family community partnership. We don't look at it exactly as an ECE course as many do, because it's for, you know, the child development permit. We have high school teachers too. And, you know, it's all applicable, but, you know, it's just a mess not to let them get this field work. And it's just, I mean, I have had full-time, people work full-time and they work it in. If they go through their lunch hour, they do this, they get those hours in. And to take it away from them, say, oh, it doesn't matter, just when you transfer, do it. That is just horrible. And who does it really reflect? The students who can least afford to have this delay and, you know, in their program. But I don't know where our power is to you know, be unified on this.
I think that's part of the issue. And Kate, I see your hands up, so you'll come next. One thing I just want to mention also, some sites are allowing part of the work to be done in a community-based organization.
Yeah, I
So
saw
that's
that.
another element too, because then our students can be hired while they're completing their field work. And I know historically that has had, you know, some issues over the years and whatnot. So I just want to mention that CBO piece because that's
Fullerton
now
sent that out. You can go to an after-school program and this and that. And I'm not sure in after-school programs, we are my course outline and whatever says credentialed teacher. And my big fight was I didn't care where the credentials from. Meaning, I don't think that California is the, you know, the prize place. You can get one from Washington, D.C., New York, Arizona, and it's fine, but credentialed teacher. So when Fullerton came out with some of these after school programs, I mean, I get it, but I've seen some of the, you know, I've seen videos and I've visited some of the after school tutors. I'm sorry, you know, they're not showing good teaching practices.
well, and you might have a community-based organization that's doing an after-school program and not one person on staff has a teaching credential, even the leadership. And so that's
Right.
those questions then. Kate, what were you going to say?
Well, what I was going to say is that we have a system here that we're not in. So one of the things that we know is that the CSU system prioritizes their own people. So they're not going to prioritize the community college people. Everybody's made really good arguments here, but until the CSUs recognize that they need our community college transfers in order to sustain their programs, I don't think they're going to listen. I thought we had an ally with Marquita, but then Marquita retired. And also I was really trying to advocate with her for system-wide because of the varying flexibility that is needed, the expertise that community colleges bring. For instance, Sylvia's description right now in terms of different kinds of programs that have different kinds of quality, one could establish something. Community colleges are professionals. They could establish that requirement, whatever that was, such as the mentor program requiring that, or the community college requiring that all students work under the direct supervision of someone who holds, in this case for early childhood, a master teacher child development permit or higher. So whatever that was that makes the floor, that makes it systematic would really make sense. But the CSUs are also very committed to localizing the power in their individual colleges. So they have that historical process. And until they realize that A, lots of people are taking courses online, B, lots of people live all over the place, and C, lots of people, they need our community college transfers in order to have robust programs. I think we're pushing up against, we need allies from them to see these points of view that we're hearing today. I think because what's been in the chat, and Rosemary, what you're saying, if Pomona requires one thing, but Fullerton requires another thing, San Francisco State requires something, but CSU East Bay, right across the bay, is something else. It's very confusing, and worse, it's very time consuming and often a failure for faculty who are trying to get through their own community college system, their local curriculum committees, their boards, to approve something that then a CSU just decides they don't care about. So it really does need to be system wide, but I don't know how and how we can pull ourselves together and advocate with reason and influence. That's what I would like to see, because this isn't a commission thing. If you talk, for instance, to Mary Sandy trying to build this new credential, she is absolutely committed to the professionalism of the community college system to establish reasonable standards. She believes in us, but if the CSU system doesn't, I think we're I don't know where to go.
It could also be too, with this being a new vice chancellor, maybe it just was like, this seemed like a quick question. One of the things that I asked was the original memo was not sent within the request. And I think that's something we should do. So we're trying to figure out if we can like rewrite back. We want to make sure to be respectful by all means, but you know, this is an emergency for us, you know, and we really need some kind of consistent guidance on it. So another thing we could do is, if everybody's comfortable, you know, our meetings are public, and so we could share this recording with our new vice chancellor in the CSU system so she can hear us speaking. But let's decide that, you know, via chat, if people are comfortable with that or not. You know, it'll be up on our regular like site and stuff, but to send it directly would be very different, you know. But if these are the concerns that we have, we want to make sure to share them. And before we get to Rosemary, one other thing that I'm wondering too, you know, I think about what about if we've got a dual enrollment high school student who's taking this course, because that happens at some of our schools. So then does that high school student now need to be tethered to only that one CSU it's going to count for in terms of their own career exploration, their own college exploration? I mean, I think about like if I took the class here, great, it's gonna articulate with Cal State Northridge. But if I'm like 17 years old, I might not want to stay at Cal State Northridge. I might want to move away, and you know what I mean, and go to Cal State East Bay, or like Cal State Monterey Bay, or like, and then what if it doesn't count there? Then suddenly I don't have everything needed. And I don't know, just I feel like there's so much around this.
Well,
Kathy,
and this compelling piece about a teacher shortage and B, an enrollment decline at CSU. If I were the CSUs, I'd start looking at those two and saying, maybe we ought to listen to these things, because we have a system who's really willing to address both of those and bring students to the CSU system as transfers and support the state of California with their teacher shortages. Okay, I'm gonna mute myself.
Oh no, I appreciate this, everybody. And Kathy, I saw your memo about your note about the memo. And within the next reach out, it should be included on that one. We've kind of had to go a couple different ways. I reached out to the interim and we weren't able to get connection then. And so we absolutely will make sure to share that. Rosemary and then Sharon.
So thank you. I was just looking through the email, the conversation that's been going on between Steve and I'm not entirely sure her role, but someone at Cal State Fullerton, I believe, Amy Nelson. We've been asking for this topic to be addressed, or he has, since May.
I think I might even have emails from April.
Probably even earlier. Yeah. And so I guess I'm here also, I'm trying to support and represent what Steve's concern is that we've already kind of got this underway, but the most recent interaction was, oh, we didn't get to it yet. We're meeting again in September. Well, this concerns me greatly, again, for the same reason I brought up earlier, is we can't just let this be hanging. It's not right to us as faculty to be holding our breath. I'm sorry. And it's absolutely not serving our students if we cannot give them a definitive path. And like Sharon was saying, know that all this time, I mean, the hardest part about Education 200, the 45 hours. I swear in my class, that is the hardest thing for my students to accomplish. And so they're breaking their necks to get those hours in. And yes, Renee, we will have 3 sections of dual enrolled at 200, 3 at 2 different high schools. No way do those 17-year-olds know where they're going next.
They all want to go to Cal Poly, don't they?
No,
Exactly.
no. And so I think this is another situation where, like, I don't know who gets to be the buck stops here person, but it's not sustainable for our students. And I hate to think that they would invest that much time, which is a massive amount of their efforts as students, and then have it not count, or have someone change the rules. So we need an answer.
Well, and I got to tell you, Rosemary, like the individual meetings that are happening, one of the campuses met with their CSU, and the CSU had not heard about the new P3 credential yet. So like there's discrepancies going, right? That are significant. Sharon, and then I think we should probably move to our next topic, because I think we're going to discuss that one a bit too.
I'm gonna be really quick, because there's the baby sleeping, because I'm a new grandmother and I'm not used to this, and I'm not home. I'm in Colorado, so I don't know. Anyway, here's the thing. Remember Janice Perry? Yes, everyone remembers Janice. Remember we talked, because this is the inconsistency with rules, that Education 200 should never be offered to high school students. It puts them at a disadvantage with the fieldwork. We're not supposed to do it. And then we see some people are doing it. So like you feel like a fool because, you know, what, Renee, when you said what happened to your daughter when she took a class, I tried to get funding that we're going to have special mentoring for high school students, but I'm not taking Education 200 because I believe that this is not good. It's that 1 unit class that's fine, and that would count, but not Education 200. And they're going to, theoretically, they're going to get screwed. And that it was up to us to let them know that. And nobody's doing it. And the schools don't do it because they are really pushing dual enrollment because they get more money from the state. It's not that they really care about the students, but you know, and Janice and Steve know the whole argument. It's something with recency or something. So to offer Education 200 to high school students is a huge mistake. And I stand by that. I won't do it. But
I think one of the problems is we don't have education courses to offer our high school students. You know what I mean? And we want them to test drive teaching. So it's like, that's what we slip in.
But those of us who started with TRDP, you know, back in the day, before I had gray hair, we had a 1 unit class. And it was, you know, we still have it now. And
Probably like
I've been
careers in education or something like that, right?
And I've been encouraged to say, oh, no, yeah, it's enough. No, we want that class for people to try it. They have to do 10 hours of field work. And that class goes strong because they can find out if they really want teaching. And it's really dealing with the standards. And so, you know, most of the students that we get that continue on, it's because they took that class. So all the community colleges have that class, you know, the 1 unit thing. But to start with Education 200, I think it's problematic. And then in the end, they'll say, well, Sharon, it didn't even matter. So stop worrying. But as Janice, I see, we have tons of emails because another school in my district was doing it. It's taking away my enrollment, and you know, it's taking away enrollment in the region. And we were asked not to do it. And they say that if, for example, the CSUs where we articulate, if they knew we were giving Education 200 to high school students, they wouldn't articulate our class. So it's that serious.
It's interesting because that's a really good point about the articulation then and dual enrollment and whatnot.
And what does recency mean? I don't know what that means actually. But
the one issue or the one point too that I want to make is you said that like all the colleges have those 1 unit EDU. Very few colleges have the 1 unit EDU. And that's one of the problems.
And that's where they should have it. And it's a great, I mean, I think it's a good class.
I think so too. I think it's so much potential. And then I see it from my daughter's side. She is now This is her third year on the pathway. She's taken 4 courses. Not one of them have counted for dual enrollment yet for the teacher pathway. They're all college and career readiness, which are like elective high school courses, which is a different type of engagement. So what can that junior, what can that senior, what can they be doing on our pathway that's unit bearing, that's going to get them interested in education and keep them on this pathway? And
I mean,
I don't have the answer. I'm just like throwing it out there because we need more offerings.
and so the thing is that I think every community college should have it, should it develop that one course. It's one unit. And then if you want to go on, the hardest part for that class is getting an instructor who will, because it's one unit and it's more work than that. But you know what? I taught it a long time ago. I thought I forget what it's like to teach face to face because I've always been online. So I taught it at Golden West one semester. It was fun. They were so excited, and the high school students were fabulous, because they could do their field work in their own high school. And
that's
so
the thing is we could create tutoring, like there's all
it's
different
great.
exploration kind of things that we can create. I'm not sure about you guys, but I was officially tutoring other children by 7th grade. Like they saw I
Right.
wanted to be a teacher and they were like, oh, Renee, take that group. And I was advanced. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, have her go teach. And so that's what I did. Why don't we cultivate that? We know that 50% of our industry knows they want to be teachers by the time they're 5 years old.
So,
Why are we waiting?
one of the things with field workers, a lot of them, they went to their old classes, their old teachers, and it was the most exciting thing in the world to talk about standards of this and that. And they write, I mean, it's amazing. And, and I remember when I had students who were doing that and they were so happy to have their 10 hours. Not one person complained about the field work. They asked, can I do more? And I said, you can do more, but it's not going to count for blah, 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 but it'll count for you. But, it's something to think about because there's plenty of one unit classes around.
Yeah, that's interesting too,
know.
Sharon, because you just said the 10 hours and it's not going to count for more, but you could do more. One of the things we could tap into with high school with that kind of a 1 unit class that's only 10 hours is any hour past 10 could go on your National Honor Society, your CS, like there's all these different like kind of scholarships and groups that require
Right.
volunteer hours.
Right.
We could market it in a way.
I
where
sign off
people
that way when I have students who they always ask permission. I'd say they did from the our 1 unit class. They ask me. I don't teach it anymore, but yeah, they can. For the class, it counts 10 hours. For the CSU, can count in that, but you should count it on everything else. Your volunteer and blah blah blah, and it goes on and on. The only thing it gets dicey is if, let's say, you have someone who already is working in a school. So they can't count like 100 hours, but because they're already working there. But we let people who do their field work in a place where they're working as an aide, but they have to get permission that it's not interfering with their regular duties. But it also, you can't let someone say, okay, 600 hours from this 1 unit class, but it's all very reasonable. And, because Education 200's in it, it's not I mean, at Fullerton, it counts as an upper division class, along with our 1 unit class and a tech class. So they take it, they go straight and counts for their credential. And I don't know how the other schools work, but Education 200 for high school students is really problematic in the fact of the field work if it doesn't count. So anyway, or someone else can look up the legality of what is recency, because I don't really know what it is, but
I want to say recency is it's like the 5 years, and I could be wrong on that. But like certain things need to be accomplished within 5 years of entering the credential program. I could be wrong on that, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe some students already go through, but Steve knows all about this, and maybe he could, use, have it as a topic, and find a solution, which I think the solution is to have the 1 unit class for everybody, or 2 unit class. It's okay,
I gotta be honest, this is a really good segue because I think this is something that needs to be accomplished at a statewide level. I think this is something that once again is showing us we need cross-system, either people or like formal relationships or whatnot. And I know we have some, but there's opportunity for more. I'm just putting in the chat right now the 23-24 TPP budget proposal that we have put into Sacramento. We've put it into our chancellor's office. This is the largest budget proposal we have ever put forth before. And it's going forth with some support from different groups within the state, which is really important. We have a letter of support. We have the CIOs have viewed this and have shown support for it. We're asking people like at Teach LARC, the regional meeting today, I shared this with the LA region and said, you know, anytime you're in a meeting with your campus leadership, you need to bring this up. Because if they're at a meeting where at the state level, they're talking about, do we fund teacher preparation? We need your people to say yes. We need all of our people to say yes. So the proposal, I'm going to go through it really briefly. There was a team of us that worked on it. Rosemary was part of the team. I was part of the team, though I was gone for a chunk of it, so I was not the lead author by any means. Kathleen White was one of the lead authors. Bobby Becca and her college was the group that officially submitted it to the chancellor's office. Steve Bautista was heavily involved. Rosemary, who am I missing? Who else was writing? I feel like I'm missing one more person. I'm sorry if I am missing somebody and it doesn't come to me. But it was a group of us working together. And the idea, there's two different levels to this proposal. And the first one is something that we had already asked for that had not been funded, but we still thought was a really good idea. And this is the concept of having 10 sub-regional teacher prep hubs across the state. And each of those hubs would be a tangible physical space with a coordinator to pull together all of the partners in teacher preparation from our community colleges, our LEAs, our county offices at our CSUs, our UCs, our privates, and really just, and we specifically did 10 because we don't want them to be in the exact same region low allocation that we have within our system, because we know certain areas of higher concentration. We just want to make sure that California is covered. So there's going to be 10 across the state of California. This is assuming that we get funded, okay? But I'm feeling good on this one. I just am. So through this, you've got the whole narrative. Everybody can check it out. We connected to the Vision for Success. We had to connect for the roadmap. We connected to the county office. Oh, thank you. Leah Martinez was part of the team. Thank you, Rosemary. Here's the kind of things that we're asking for. I'm going to stop share on this one, though, and share the budget, because the budget is the piece that I think will help to break down certain pieces with everybody. In addition to the 10 hubs, one of the things that was really, really important to us, so there's funding for the 10 hubs, but then for every year for 5 years, remember our goal is to scale teacher preparation efforts across our system, right? So we have written this in. So there's 3 different tiers that if we get funded, colleges will be able to go for. There's a tier 1, which would be $50,000 a year. And that's assuming people already have teacher prep going. You're paying like a part-time, coordinator. You're also running different events for your students. Hopefully some level of mentoring going on with what you do, maybe course development, things like that. Level 2 would be $30,000 per year annually for 5 years. And that would be like you're working on building a program, you're kind of starting to pull people together. Maybe you have a couple partners, but you need to do some more course development or maybe pathway development or degree development. And then the tier 3 would be at $15,000 a year for 5 years. And that would be like more beginning TPPs. They want to investigate what they could start doing for their students. Maybe they start holding a CBEST or CSEP workshop or something to kind of engage and get people going. With these allocations, the thing that I want to point out the most is the reason why the numbers are not huge is because we're attempting to scale across the entire system. So we're talking about 30 campuses at tier 1, 40 campuses at tier 2, and 45 campuses at tier 3. We're looking at investing in every single college, basically, who's interested in teacher preparation. In addition, there'd be the 10 hubs on top of the individual campus programs. Another thing that you can see on here as well that we wrote in, we want to make sure that we have an ECE COP, an EDU COP. We want to have a first generation COP affinity group. These are leaders in our group who've been volunteering and leading these for years. We want to formalize it now. It's really exciting. A lot of other groups are starting COPs right now or started them in spring. Rachel and I were messaging just yesterday. I'd like to believe that we had an impact on that. I'd like to believe that other groups are starting COPs because they found the value in what we did during the pandemic. Another thing too that's really important to note, we have included money for for memberships, professional memberships for all of the campuses. And we even included examples, ACTEP, Peach, Tri-C-ECE. We want to be explicit with what we're doing. Everybody knows I try to be totally as transparent as I can be, and I want to make sure everybody knows this. I've also been written as the statewide lead of our group. For those of you who are around at Ed Futures, you know that I served in that role formally when we had a little bit of funding then, and when we sunsetted at the end of October 2019. I said, do we want to keep meeting? Because if so, I'll keep going. And so I haven't been on a contract for years, but I vowed, like, what we do is so essential that I know that we need to keep coming together. So I'm hoping I can be written, like, I hope this gets funded because I want to run it, everybody. I'm ready. In addition to me, though, or whoever ends up taking that role, I mean, we put me because I know we can't say somebody officially, but, we wanted to make it obvious that, again, transparent. There would be another statewide lead role too. So you'd have one person who would be the lead, but they'd really be that liaison with the chancellor's office and all the different agencies. And then you'd have like the programmatic lead as well. So the budget for this, it's about a little over $5.5 million each year for 5 years. If we get it, it'll start in 2023 to 24 school year. One interesting thing to note, last year we did submit a budget proposal, and we have emailed repeatedly over the year to get the results on that. And multiple times we've been told the decision hasn't been made yet, which is very strange, because we're talking this fiscal year now. And so when we were working with the CIO from Rio Hondo College to get support of the overall CIO organization, Don told us that he was part of a budget proposal for this school year that was on anti-racism training, and they just found out they got funded. And so I'm still hopeful that depending on where things are with the budget, maybe there's a chance we could have some funding. I don't know. They haven't said yes, but they haven't said no at this point either. And finding out that he was just funded like 3 weeks ago, anyways, I'm still hopeful. So if anything materializes with that, we'll make sure that we tell everybody. But any thoughts or discussion about the proposal? I mean, it really is to bring everybody together across systems and to really across our system hold opportunities for teacher preparation, and most importantly, have a foundation to connect us all working together. So that really is kind of like the guts, or like that core of the proposal. So any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I think Renee, together we're better. I sound like Bev Boss, but
That's
it's
a good thing.
essential, but it's also essential that we get the chancellor's office and the community college system to endorse this, because that's also going to signal, Rosemary and I were in the chat. I mean, we need to get compelling arguments that, I'm sorry to say this, that sell these ideas to the CSU. And one way to do that is for the CSU to say, oh, Chancellor's Office of the Community College, you're funding this, so you must think it's important. People listen to each other, leads,
Absolutely.
co-leads, as opposed to like this. Sorry, I'd like it not to be hierarchical, but it is. So system to system, I think it's critical. The other piece that I wonder about, and I don't want to take us off this proposal, but just as a sort of a sideline, is how is it that the teacher shortage in the state of California is not more compelling to the CSU system? And I think a piece of that is because the BA CSU system is not consistently connected to their postgraduate credential program. So I'm not trying to just make more problems, but I think sometimes knowing where things aren't connected sometimes helps. I also see that Kathleen's here. Hooray, Kathleen. Thank you. Because I think with this could be a good, compelling argument for the CSU to listen up.
Mm-hmm. I agree with exactly what you're saying there, Kate. And I think another piece of it too, first of all, the disconnect between the two programs within one campus, I think is fascinating. But I know like you're like the department of, or what I'm trying to think of, like what they call it. Like you have your liberal studies and then you've got your College of Education. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they're one and the same, and yet they're not.
Well, liberal studies is a bachelor's program and the College of Education is a graduate program. And
Yes,
so why should they have to? As long as they get candidates until they don't.
yes, yes, absolutely. Now, Kathleen, do you want to say what you just said in the chat? Because I think it's really important.
Oh,
Hi.
hey everyone. Yeah, so we've heard of some recent efforts and funding opportunities that got nixed in consultation because the higher ups at the CCCCO were not really aware of the importance, or they didn't have an advocate with their ear within their,
Mhm.
you know, higher hierarchy. And the fact that we don't have that advocate up there in the higher hierarchy means that when stuff comes up, it's like, okay, I guess this is important. And it's not a priority.
Kathleen, how do we get that? How do we get that?
I
Like,
think
I feel
we,
like we haven't had that since like Vaughn, and even Vaughn, like that was like Vaughn
Right.
wasn't like this. It was more like this weird advocate.
yeah,
I mean, it was,
I think it almost needs to be part of, I mean, it's not quite part of this proposal because the proposal is a on the ground proposal,
yeah,
but I think if any element of it does get funded, we need to identify someone that's gonna be the advocate for it and kind of both supervise it, but also lead the effort and be the point person, because you know, without that critical point person in Sacramento, that it's just not a priority.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're
I-
right, because it's a good idea, but
Yeah,
it's not a priority.
right.
So we can just keep making it a good idea, but
Yeah.
until somebody says, wow, we ought to be doing that. And then the rest of them go, really, is that the one we should do? Yes, that's the one we
That's
should.
the one. That's
what
of
you-
the 10, that's the one. I
Yeah.
think what we haven't done is approach our own board.
yeah.
And there's actually a student vacancy, right? No, the student vacancies at CTC, sorry.
Yeah, I already have
Um,
sent a student. We have one of our students that's
Yeah.
looking for that.
Yeah, but our own board, our own community college board, statewide board, may be worth pursuing and at least informing, because, you know, they're kind of the dog that wags the tail.
Mhm.
And I don't think we've done intentional outreach.
We have
We
not.
do have a board member that I actually, you know, he was from San Francisco, I know him, but it's never quite been a priority to reach out to him. But and I'm sure there's linkages, you know, if you just look at the board, you can figure out who knows who. So that could be one strategy, especially now that we're in between chancellors and, you know, things are even more chaotic. And I still think the CDE board has sway, not just the staff, but the board, because they are supposed to be hearing from their constituents that they represent, and hearing that community colleges aren't included in a number of the efforts. You know, people talk.
Yeah. I'm looking up right. Okay, board members. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
trying to look it up so I could share.
And then I just wanted to announce before I have another meeting in a few minutes, but and Kate, I wanted to, when you said that, Kate, I wanted to tell you the Academic Senate has Ginny Mays, the new president, and so she has agreed to meet with me to revive the resolution. They did meet with the administration, but I think everyone they met with's gone now.
Okay,
So we have a meeting in August, and
great, Kathleen.
they, you know, she reached out to me and said, we really want to get this back on the front burner. So let's,
Good.
you know, if I
Well,
put
again,
a
you
call
know,
out,
I know this sounds strange, but you know, I had a conversation this spring with Dolores Davidson, the outgoing president,
yeah,
about where things were.
right.
And, you know, I don't think I'm very important, but the idea that anybody we know, find out who you know.
Right.
You
to
just
figure
like
out how
ask
you
if we
make-
can meet with
So
them.
you,
Like,
when you and Ginny meet, are
Yeah.
you gonna pick up that resolution again?
Yes,
Good.
it's, I think she knows that it kind of drifted off into, they had a consultation meeting around it, but
Uh-huh.
all the people in that meeting are not there anymore.
Okay.
So, you know, it's also the turnover at the chancellor's office, and
Yeah.
she wants to pick it back up. So she
Good.
said they were very proactive in the meeting, and it was, you know, they've had turnover there too at the Academic Senate. So
Well,
let's just keep, we got to do all avenues, I think.
good. Sounds like a fall plenary thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Like,
this is my last year as District Academic Senate
yeah.
President of the district.
Yeah.
So I want to, do what I can to push it along.
Yeah. Well, keep it on the forefront, and
good.
Jenny's going to meet about it. So we may
Right.
need our faculty to just send an email saying, yeah, where'd this go? And it passed. And things are worse now than they were when I wrote it. I mean, you know, Kate, you looked at all that data and you looked
I
at
know.
all those elements. Things are worse.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, man. Rosemary?
No, I'm just trying to process everything. And this may be stating the obvious, but what we were talking about as far as getting attention to our programs, and this is something that I know, Steve, every time we're in a space with CCTE and anytime we're in a space with our lawmakers or policymakers, reminding them that teacher preparation is not just that credential program. And I understand what's going on, but like my understanding, and I believe Steve's was with CCTE, was that a focus of the fall conference was going to be on ACTEP and community colleges' role in the teacher preparation process. But now I just the other day received a message from CCTE, which is, I mean, legitimate, important issue, which is a credential for ethnic studies teachers. And ethnic studies is now going to be the overarching theme of the fall meeting. So I'm assuming there'll still be some space, and I wonder, okay, this just literally came to my head because I need another thing to work on. They're still accepting proposals for the fall conference, and it's
Rosemary,
either
you're reading my
research.
mind.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. You're reading my mind. That was actually, I'm submitting a proposal.
Okay.
I'm gonna submit it on the PK through 3 credential.
Okay. Well, I'm wondering if we need to consider putting together a practice presentation on a problem of practice presentation on teacher preparation at the community college and how we feed into that.
I was
Sorry.
going to see who else would be interested. I think we need to have at least 3 to 5 proposals submitted. They're not due for a couple more weeks, if I remember correctly. I feel like it's mid-August.
Yeah, I do too. And I like that just came to mind because I fully appreciate, understand, and support the idea of properly preparing ethnic studies teachers. I don't want to take away from that. But as I was using my mouth, I was realizing at the same time that we could still find a way to emphasize our role in teacher preparation by doing these presentations. And I presented there in the spring and actually got a poster accepted in fall. So I know if they're accepting my stuff, that I could probably help get something written if y'all give me a little bit of direction on like what we think we want to talk about. And we could talk to Steve about that as well, because I imagine he has some thoughts on that.
I think that's a great idea, Rosemary. I'd be happy to collaborate with you. I was going to take the lead on the PK through 3 one.
Mhm.
My plan was to bring in colleagues from CTC and faculty from our system. And I did have some people say already that I should be going across systems, but I don't want the panel to get too large. And I want to make sure I have us and the agency represented before I expand any further. So what I'm going to do is really specialized in the one area. So I think it'd be really smart to do your proposal in addition. And we could absolutely get a team that would be willing to present and have capacity to go to the event, to the conference. And so let's talk some more. If anybody who's on right now would be interested, and we'll be able, it's going to be face-to-face in San Diego, October 20th to 22nd. let us know, because it would be great to have you involved. Interestingly too, for those who are in the LA area, we are talking San Diego. So you could even, I mean, it wouldn't be great, but you could feasibly come down for the day if you didn't want to, spend the night. I know that would be a lot of driving, but it could be possible. So Rosemary, can you and I plan to talk some more? And then
Yeah, yeah,
anyone
because
interested in either of these ideas, please, please, please talk to me. And Kate, yes, we can absolutely talk some more. Absolutely.
yeah, I'm 100% on board. I'm in like the proposal writing mode these days for presentations and stuff. I just did 2 on
Excellent.
Monday. So I would love, because basically you either need to be presenting research or a problem of practice, and this would clearly be a problem of practice.
Mhm.
And if anything, it would be to kind of let folks in CCTE and anybody who's reading their program know what's going on. Plus, I believe Lorena Herman is the keynote.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
they want to expand with the community colleges, so it makes sense for us to submit more this time,
yeah, and my community college, Aquesta joined officially as a member, which made them very happy. So I think let's talk about that, because I'm in that mode. I can write a proposal.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much, Kate, for being here today. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Kate. So good to see you.
So next we've got ACTEP update, but Steve is not here right now. I'm not sure if Megan or Kathleen or anybody else would like to share. I know that there's going to be a convening in fall. I don't know the date right now. Is there anybody who'd like to share any more info? Okay, if not, if you guys could just thank you, Kathleen. I see what you just put. If you could let us know so that way we can get the word out. Steve and I were talking about our August TPP meeting being a shared meeting. So I'm assuming at that meeting, we'll have a much, stronger clarity in terms of the future, not the future, but the fall. The future sounded so like the future. I wanted to alert people to a couple quick things too, and ask for opinions on 2 things. It's important to know everybody is aware that the P3 credential, there's a lot going on at the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing. I just wanted to let everybody know they have meetings coming up on August 25th and 26th. They're all virtual. You're encouraged to give public comment. Our community colleges have been very active in terms of public comment at these meetings, and so I don't think the agenda, it hasn't been released yet. It's usually like a couple days before the meeting, maybe a week before, if I remember correctly, something like that, at least 48 hours. And if I'm guessing there'll be quite a few kind of hot topics on there. I know right now there's a lot to do with the literacy standards, and there's been some questioning from the advocates from the dyslexia community. And I'm not sure if I just termed that right, and so there's been kind of some pushback and a lot more discussion. So they should be robust meetings. Just wanted to call everybody's attention to it. And then these 2 items I want to just open for discussion. And I'm sorry that we're so small here. If we can't decide as a smaller group right now, I can absolutely open it up to a larger group as well. I had planned to do a TPP social this summer. And then the summer has basically turned into like a COVID-orama for my family. But at this point, I don't think anybody else can get it. But we started off with me and my son having COVID. We finally got clear enough to go on a family vacation. We got back at 2 in the morning from the family vacation. We tested all of us at that point. My daughter tested positive and was sick for about 10 days. And then my son the next day was in urgent care with bronchitis. Anyways, I don't know what even happened in July. I'm going to be honest. So I would still love to do a social, but I didn't know if like August would be acceptable maybe. So I just threw it out there. I know that a lot of us who have children are starting the first 2 weeks of August. So I didn't want to infringe on those times. But I was wondering if people would be interested in doing a social at my house. It could be on either the 20th or 27th of August. They're both Saturdays. Totally like you just drop in if you want to kind of deal. If you're somebody who's flying in, we'd make sure that somebody gets you at the airport, and you could always crash at my house, or I have a pretty big house. And so any thoughts on doing a social even though it's still late? Would anybody be interested in that? It wouldn't be any sort of commission, like you're not committed. It would just be like I hold a party and you come to it if you want to. Any thoughts? Or do you think it'll be too chaotic at that point? Yeah? Okay, that's okay, Rosemary. It's okay.
That's just me. I mean, I'm only speaking for myself, but.
No, I agree. I think it sounds like a great idea, but August is just a little difficult with everyone going back.
Well,
No,
Megan,
I have the
appreciate you saying
most,
that, you know, like, 'cause
I
it's-
have such an overwhelming fall semester. I'm trying to cut things out. I can't add a single another thing, but
okay. Well,
that's
and
just me.
I appreciate you both saying this. Another piece of it too is down here, we are confirmed for the CCC AOE conference that we're hosting a TPP social again. And while it is, you know, later in the semester, it's a conference, hopefully people will be, you know, from our team will be interested in attending. Last year when we hosted this at CCC AOE, we initially planned for a 4-hour party. And I'm sure you've all heard this story, but I have to say it again. We initially planned for a 4-hour party. We were hoping maybe 30 people would show up over the course of 4 hours. The party turned into a 7-hour party where we had somewhere between like 70 to 80 people that came. People were eating and drinking and dancing and singing. And anyways, we're going to do it again. And so if we decide to not do a social in August, we've got something coming up in October. So, you know, and I can even throw it out to the whole team and see their thoughts. If people are like, no, it's too late, then that's okay. It is what it is. The other thing I wanted to bring up to everybody was, do we want to do a bridging event in fall? You know, we have different groups that have started to do different types of bridging events, especially when it comes to the P3 credential. You know, we've seen West Ed, and First Five, we saw LPI last month. Just yesterday, TPP, Peach, Tri-C, ECE, Calbax, we were planning to hold an event. We had major Zoom issues and actually have to bump it to next Friday. But we had, I think, like about 250 people registered for yesterday. So there is still the interest in bridging. But I wanted to see, we don't have any funding to do it, but if we want to do it, I'll put together a bridging event if we want to do it. So I just wanted to throw it out there and see everybody's thoughts on it. Again, I know we're just getting into fall, so if it's not the time to discuss it, we could table it to the August meeting if we want to. But I just wanted to throw it out there because I'm not sure about you guys. My calendar's already starting to fill for fall. Like it's going to be busy. This has been probably the busiest summer of my career. It's been a really busy summer. So any thoughts on a bridging event for fall? Rosemary, your face is cracking me up right now.
Sorry, I'm not sure how I'm getting to December at this point. So my mind is already blown.
Well, we could wait and talk about it later by all means. Like I just feel like there's still the need to bring everybody together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think looking at like that bringing systems together project we need it more now than ever, I think, with all these things that we've been talking about just today. Like this is an example, like we're sitting here saying what we need to understand and we're ready to support all of these things, but we need direction from the other systems to know what's going to make the most sense. So yeah, I don't know. I do not have capacity to initiate something, but I'm happy to help once things get rolling.
Nobody would have to initiate, Rosemary. It would be me initiating, but I'd be pulling in different people to do presentations and panels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, and everything is so unknown. Like I'm even more concerned now than I was at the beginning of this meeting with talk about like how untethered we all seem to be. Plus we're looking at both ethnic studies and PK3 situation, absolutely urgent and imminent. And we don't have a way to ensure ethnic studies instructors are prepared. We still don't have the PK3 credential figured out. And I feel like I do agree. I do think if that's what you're talking about, like that bringing systems together kind of thing is what you're proposing. I do think that we need it. I don't know where it fits. I don't know how we fit it in or who to partner with, but.
One of the other tricky things is the last one we ran. On the survey, I asked what was the frequency where you would like to have meetings, and people asked for them quarterly.
Yeah.
Which, if the proposal goes through and we have hubs and this all happens, you bet there's going to be some quarterly, like, you know what I mean? Like that's how we can like finally finalize it. Thank you, Veronica. Happy weekend. Okay, so do you think I should bring it up at the next meeting or what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's, again, my mind is pretty blown by how out there we all are. And I think we need it. I don't know how it happens, but I think we do need it. And like, if we can't do we need support to do it. We
Yes.
need the resources to do it. It needs to somehow be formalized. And what the concern I have about the hub proposal is if we still don't know about last year's proposals, we can't sit around and wait. And
Well,
so,
we have contacted repeatedly, but we haven't been shut down. That's the point.
right.
Which
Well-
we've had situations before where we had stuff like, we had one year, Rosemary, where we were on the last day of the grant, the last day.
Mm.
And then the chancellor's office goes, we're going to give you a three-month extension on the last day. The last day. So everybody was pulling back money, trying to allocate it from different sources. And that's why I don't ever discount that it wouldn't happen. Because once I found out that he got some funding, the CIOs group, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, I mean, I don't even know where you even start with this, but is it, are there partners like the different consulting groups that might be able to support us with paying you so that?
Oh, I wouldn't want
speakers
to
and
ask them
stuff?
for that. I
But
appreciate
I mean-
that. I would, or you know what, another thing that
hosting?
happen too is we might have somebody in our group that has some funding that then
Right.
and maybe we bring that up at the August meeting, because
Yeah, let's
ideally
do
we don't
that.
have a plan for August or September. We don't. So we're looking more like, October, November. But it might be a good deliverable for somebody, but it might not. Either way though, I mean, I have to pay bills, so it's always great when I can get paid. But I also know that there's certain parts to our work that need to happen. I feel like I'm back in my kindergarten classroom. Well, if I've got
No,
to
but
buy my supplies so the kids have supplies, I'm going to do it because that's just what it
but
is.
I think that and it's a catch-22 because I think that sets a bad precedent.
Yep.
Because and so what I'm wondering, and again, I don't know how it all works, but I don't know if there's a way to partner with one of these, I really don't know, but I'm throwing it out there, like West Ed or LPI or something like that, where they can provide some of the infrastructure, some of the emailing, the Zoom, the platform, and maybe some of the admin support, like the administrative support, like the emails and the event, whatever.
Yeah.
The infrastructure. And I know that in some situations you've been able to offer stipends, and I know a lot of us would do this for free, but again, I think it's important that for us to establish the fact that these are professionals and we're taking the initiative as a community college system. And really a lot of the four-year systems don't go too far without us.
Yeah.
But we're initiating this. So I feel like it would be nice if we could find a partner. If it's not our chancellor's office, then is it one of these other consulting firms that could perhaps join us? I don't, like I said, I don't know how that ball gets rolling.
We could even, one group we haven't ever asked is the Community College Foundation. So we could check with them. I have the opportunity to collaborate with a lot of the groups. And so there's certain ones that are easier to work with, or, you know what I mean? And so, so I could absolutely possibly have a discussion like this. I'm going to pause just for 1 second. Thank you so much for being here today, everybody. We look forward to continuing the conversation, and everybody have a good rest of summer. See
You
you
too.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies. Always good to